This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, I would like to share with you another inyan of Hoshana Rabba. I saw part of it literally 10 years ago, and I'm not sure I was able to make too much headway. I saw something else this year that fit in really remarkably well with this idea. It's based on a Gra and a Levush. It's mamish hafla v'fela. And Bekitzer, it goes like this. A new pshat in Hoshana Rabba. The Gra is found in the Adaras Eliyahu, and the Gra is commenting on a medrash. The medrash tells us when Hashem created the luminaries, Vayitein oisam Elokim berkia hashamayim. God put the luminaries in the heavens. And what do the luminaries do? V'hayu la'isais. There will be signs. Ulamayadim, ulayamim, v'shanim. Says the Medrash. There will be signs, elu shabbasais. Ulamayadim, elu shalosh regalim. Ulayamim, elu rashi chadashim. Ulashanim, zakidush shanim. Now, that's the lashon of the Medrash Rabba in Parsha Vav Ois Aleph. The Yalkut Shimoni says instead of Zek Kiddush Shanim, Elu Rashi Shanim, Rosh Hashanah. So basically, in this pasuk, it lists all the special days of the year, and Rashi says it's predicting the future days, even though they weren't Netztava yet, but it's sort of alluding to the future days. So listen to the Medrash. Oisois is Shabbos, is Ois Hila Olam. So we got the Shabbos. Umayadim is Yom Tif, Ela Mayadei Hashem. Yeah? Mayadim. Yomim is Rosh Chodesh. T'chsiv Ad Chodesh Yomim. Shanim is Rosh Hashanah. As the Gra, we got every special day on the Jewish calendar, except for maybe Rabbi Shilo's yard site, they didn't get in. But besides that, we got in every day, except for Yom Kippur. Where's Yom Kippur? I mean, we got everything else. What do you have against Yom Kippur? I mean, it's not like we don't know. We don't know about anything yet. We don't know about. But Shabbos is Oisais. Mayadim is Yom Tif. Yomim is Rosh Chodesh. Shanim is Rosh Hashanah. What happened to Yom Kippur? That's the kasha of the Gaon. It's a kasha only the Gaon would even be mayor. Very interesting question. Rav Moshe Shapiro quotes another Gaon. It is well known that there's a major stira. The Gemara Rosh Hashanah says, 3 books are open on Rosh Hashanah. Tzadikim gemurim nechtavim nechtam la'alta l'chayim. Right? The completely righteous, they're signed and sealed for life. The Rishonim, signed and sealed for death. Beinanim, tluim, va'imdim, and everything for them happens on Yom Kippur. So basically, is there anybody whose judgment is in a 2-step process? No. Tzadikim, everything Rosh Hashanah. Risham, everything on Rosh Hashanah. Beinanim, everything on Yom Kippur. So it's a stira, because doesn't the Gemara say, Rosh Hashanah yikasevon, over Yom Tzom Kippur, yichasevon? Which is what we say in Nisana Toikef. It's a stira to Nisana Toikef. Nisana Toikef, we say, it's all a 2-step process. It's written on Rosh Hashanah, it's sealed on Yom Kippur. Who's written on Rosh Hashanah and sealed on Yom Kippur? Not tzaddikim, not Rishayim, and not Beinanim. Who is not a tzaddik, a Rosh or Beinani that's Yikasev on Rosh Hashanah and Yichasem on Yom Kippur? Who is Rosh Hashanah, Yikasev, Yom Kippur, Yichasem on? Who is that? So the Gra quotes the Ran. The Gra quotes Tosfos. That it's a big mistake that on Rosh Hashanah, tzadikim nechtam v'nechtam la'alter l'chayim, and Risham la'alter l'misa is talking about this world. It's not talking about this world. It's talking about Olam Haba. Olam Haba, tzadikim are signed into Olam Haba immediately on Rosh Hashanah. Risham are signed into Gehenna immediately on Rosh Hashanah. Beinanim, they're in between this world and the next world, and their fate is decided on Yom Kippur. That's Olam Haba. Now, of what relevance is it now in this world whether I'm going to Olam Haba right now? I hope to be alive now and not go to Olam Haba yet. We have a shiur on that subject. Basically, it's important to know where you're rooted in. Okay, fine. But when we say Nasana Toikef, Rosh Hashanah, Yikasevon, Yom Tzom Kippur, Yichasevon, it's talking about Olam Hazeh. Olam Hazeh is a two-step process for everyone. Written on Rosh Hashanah and undecided until Yom Kippur, sealed on Yom Kippur. It's interesting. Olam Haba, Rosh Hashanah for everyone, except for the Beinanim, and the Beinanim, everything on Yom Kippur. But Olam Hazeh, step 1 on Rosh Hashanah, and step 2 on Yom Kippur. In fact, back to your sheet, the Munkacher on the Sha'ar Yisaschar, the Minchas Elazar, says that he saw a sefer in Berlin, an old manuscript, which was claimed to be over 400 years old, written in Italy. It said like this, in the Sanka, Rosh Hashanah, Yishavton, Uv'yom Tzom Kippur, Yekasevon, Uv'yom Hoshana Rabba, Yechasemon. Interesting. That Girsa has not survived past that Italian machzor in Berlin. But there was such a Girsa. But anyway, back to the ranch. So it comes out, according to the Gaon, regarding our fate in Olam Hazeh, we're written on Rosh Hashanah and we're sealed on Yom Kippurim. Okay? So Moshe Shapiro wants to know, why does it take 10 days? Why doesn't Hashem just, do it in one shot? He first writes it, and then he puts the seal. Why? So he says, Divrei Hagra, Aniyim b'makom echad, v'ashirim b'makom acher. Says Rav Moshe Shapiro, you know why it's sealed on Yom Kippur? It's not really a two-step process. Remember the Medrash that says, Oisois is Shabbosos, and Moyadim is Yom Tif, and Yomim is Rosh Chodesh, and Shanim is Rosh Hashanah. Where's Yom Kippur? Says the Gra, there's no such thing as Yom Kippur. There's no day called Yom Kippur. And I'm sure a lot of people would be happy about that. But the Gra says there's no such thing as Yom Kippur. Really? So what's Yom Kippur? It says very pashut. Is Judaism, let's take a poll of so many people are here tonight. Is Judaism a lunar calendar or a solar calendar? Both. The answer is yes, right? It's both. It's a lunar calendar, but it has to be reconciled with the solar calendar because Pesach has to be at a certain time of the year. So it's both. So we make an Ibriyar every 3 years or so to recalibrate. Says the Gra, there's no such thing as Yom Kippur. There's a lunar calendar of 355 days. The problem is the solar calendar is taking you another 10 days into the year, into the next year. So even though Rosh Hashanah was 10 days before, not according to the solar calendar, according to the solar calendar, it's not the Rosh Hashanah until 10 days into the new year. So you know what Yom Kippur is? Yom Kippur is Rosh Hashanah. But of the solar calendar, not the lunar calendar. There's no such thing as Yom Kippur. The reason the pasuk doesn't say Yom Kippur is there is no such thing as Yom Kippur. It's the Gra. So says Rav Moshe Shapiro, Rosh Hashanah really is a 10-day period. There are 10 days called Rosh Hashanah. The 10 days it takes for the first day of the lunar calendar is Rosh Hashanah, and it's going to take another 10 days until the solar calendar gets up to Rosh Hashanah. So that whole period of the year is Rosh Hashanah. So it's not really like it's written and then signed. It's like it's being signed on Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is 10 days. That's the union of Aser Simei Tshuva. It's not like there's one day called Rosh Hashanah and then there's 10 days. It's like 10 days for the solar calendar to reach the Rosh Hashanah of the lunar calendar. That's the Gra. Fine. I happened to see that this year. And then I realized that this gives added insight into a Levush that I saw many years ago. The Levush happens to be on your sheet, in number 10. And that is the Levush wants to know, what is Pshat in Hoshana Rabba? And basically, he says what the Gra says, there's no such thing as Yom Kippur. The Levush says there's no such thing as Hoshana Rabba. You know what Hoshana Rabba is? It's the solar calendar has 10 extra days until it gets to its Yom Kippur. The solar calendar's Yom Kippur is Hoshana Rabba. No, because the lunar calendar is 355. The solar calendar is 365. But the truth is that it's more than 10 days apart. It's 10 days, 21 hours, and 24 chalakim apart. So in year one, the solar calendar's Rosh Hashanah is going to be on Yom Kippur, Yud. Even though it's sort of 21 hours into Yom Kippur, but it's on Yom Kippur, so the day is Yom Kippur. But the next year, in other words, the next year, it's going to be not on day 10, but it's going to be on day 21, because it's 2 10-day, 21-hour periods later. So the reason, says Levush, that Hoshana Rabbah is like Yom Kippur is because it is Yom Kippur. Which is an amazing thought that every day that we live, we're living in 2 dimensions simultaneously. So you'll say, well then what is the third year? That's why in the third year we make an Ibra yarn and we catch up and they get back together. Now, says Levush, even though it's not perfect, because not always the third year, it's 7 out of 19, but since it's nikva al piroiv. So what's amazing is, today, Hoshana Rabbah is the lunar year's Hoshana Rabbah, which is significant because it's the solar year's Yom Kippurim. Which means that we're basically living in 2 spheres at the same time. If you weren't grounded enough, this will really get you off the ground. So let's read the words of the Levush. Levush says in V'oid nirali, on the 4th line, V'oid nirali tam, lamalis yoim ze al shar hayamim, ki lefi seder hashanim v'iburan, yia yoim Hoshana Rabbah k'moy yom kippur. Why is that? Kasher kasavti bedrashos, like I wrote in my drashos, v'huzeh. Kvar yadata, sheshnas chama yisera al shnas halavana, yud yamim chaf alev shois reish daled chalakim. 204 chalakim, excuse me. That the solar year is more than the lunar year by 10 days, 21 hours, and 204 chalakim. And according to this, you could easily understand Shem Kavana Rosh Hashanah Berishain B'Yom HaMoilad Kasharoi Liyos. If in year one Rosh Hashanah is going to be on the Moilad the way it should be, which it's not always, then the solar year will not be finished until 10 days into the next year. Rosh Hashanah of the solar year will be 10 years after the Molad. Yom Kippur Shana Sheni, which is Yom Kippur the second year, which is exactly what the Gra says. Why in the Medrash the Yom Kippur is not Merumaz in the Pasuk, because there's no such thing as Yom Kippur. V'imkein lefizeh b'shana Sheni is in the second year. Kishatascho shnas hachama b'Yom Kippur, when the solar year is Yom Kippur, then if the solar year is starting on Yom Kippur, then the next solar year does not begin. Basically, Hoshana Rabbah of year 3 is Rosh Hashanah of the solar year. So in other words, in year 1, they're all the same. In year 2, Yom Kippur is Rosh Hashanah of the Shnas HaChama. In year 3, Hoshana Rabbah is Rosh Hashanah of Shnas HaChama. The next year we're Ma'aber. And then it comes in the 4th year, they're both equal. So that's quite interesting. He says like this, V'alkein, therefore is my opinion. You know why Yom Kippur is always on the 10th of the month? And why the Chasim is always on Hoshana Rabbah? Since from time immemorial, meaning day 10 is Rosh Hashanah of the Shnas HaChama, day 21 is the following Rosh Hashanah of Shnas HaChama. Therefore, even though it's not always mechuvan, it doesn't work out for year 8 and 19, but nevertheless, al pi rov it works out. He says, "V'zeh nirali tam barur misoides tamei Torah Hashem Yisbarach Yirenu neflois miTorasei." Okay, Rabbi say, so the Rebbe Shalom should give us today, which is some type of Rosh Hashanah for the solar year. And is it possible to say that we know all the Rishonim bring down, be it the Ramban, be it Rabbeinu Bechaye, be it the Rekanti, be it the Roikeach, the concept that a person could see their future alluded to in the shadow of the moon, that there's something significant about the moonlight, the night of Hoshana Rabba. Perhaps it has something to do with the fact that it's the night of the year that we're trying to reconcile the sun and the moon. The sun and the moon have to make peace, and we know the moonlight comes from sun or lack thereof. So maybe the one night a year, whether there is a moon shadow or is not, is the night that we sort of have to give credibility not only to the lunar cycle but to the solar cycle. Basically, Hoshana Rabbah is one of the only nights of the year where we actually are paying attention to the sun. So maybe that is connected to the inyan of the shadows, B'leil Hoshana Rabbah. But as the Levush ended so beautifully, Zeh nirali tam boror misoidois tamei Torah Hashem Yisbarach Yirenu neflois miTorasei. So wishing everybody a agon kvitel, a piska tava, and a chasima toiva lanu ulechol Yisrael. Amen. Shkayach.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.